Welcome to Motherhood. Whether you're 18 or 80, Dr. Christina Hibbert, clinical psychologist, author, and mother of 6, is here to help you through the ups and downs, the joys and frustrations, the new information from experts, and the stories of happiness and heartbreak from real moms. Remember, if you can, tell your mama to listen too.
And I'll make everything all right.
Here's Christy.
Welcome to Motherhood. I'm Dr. Christina Hibbert, and I'm so glad that you're here to grow with us through this unlimited experience we call motherhood. And today we're going to be talking about how we can take those limits off being a mom. Because, you know, we all have those ideas, those beliefs that sort of keep us in our little box and keep us feeling like maybe we can't do what we want to do, or we don't have the energy to do what we really would want to do, or we just feel guilty if we're trying to do what we want to do. And today we're all about breaking those limits and helping us to achieve those dreams, those goals that we all have inside. So I'm going to introduce our fabulous guest in just a minute. But first of all, I want to thank you for growing with us through motherhood here each week as you do on our show, and for joining us online on my website at drchristinahibbert.com, where you can find all kinds of amazing free resources and tools to help you in your motherhood journey, as well as on our YouTube channel, where you can find videos for almost all of these episodes. And you can go find me there at Dr. Christina Hibbert on YouTube to find a video episode of today's show as well. And of course, on social media all over the place, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, and of course in our Facebook group, Growing Through Motherhood. So if you haven't joined that yet, just ask to be added. Growing Through Motherhood. We'd love to meet up with you there and hear from you. And I have to say, I'm very pleased with those of you who've gotten in touch with me lately, who've sent me a message or an email, just saying, you know, how you're feeling about the shows. It's been great feedback, positive feedback, but also giving me some ideas for what you want to learn about, because I love to do what you want to learn about here on the show. Now, as I said, today we're going to be talking about some of those limits that we might have on ourselves, and some of the things that it might take, the skills that we might want to develop, the ways, or as I always like to say, the how of how we can break those limits on ourselves. Now, if you think about it, I know each of us can think of a time or times, or maybe you're in a big time right now, where we have felt like we do have limits. And I know I say this to my husband all the time because I feel like he doesn't totally get it all the time. I always say, you don't get it. I feel like my life revolves around everybody else's life. Like, you guys all have your lives because, you know, we have our 6 kids of all ages doing whatever they're doing. My husband does what he does. And there have been so many times where I felt like I just have to then go fit myself in after all those other pieces are already set. And I'm just sort of like filling in the cracks with what I want to do when I can after all that other stuff's taken care of. And, you know, I've realized over the years that even though it feels that way to me, it doesn't have to be that way. So I feel like that's one of the limits that I've had on myself, is feeling like everybody else has to be put together first, and then I fit myself into the cracks. When it doesn't need to be that way. Not only does it need to be that way, but in my opinion, and from what I've learned for myself, it's actually better when we don't look at it that way. When we can fit ourselves in, put ourselves as an equal piece of the puzzle, then we're happier, we're more energized, we're feeling just better overall, and we pass that on to our kids. So today we're gonna talk about those things, and I have a fabulous guest here with me today, Valerie Friedlander. Welcome to Motherhood, Valerie.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's so great to have you here, and I have to tell everybody, so Valerie actually reached out to me because she's doing a fabulous summit, a free summit, which we're going to tell you all about in just a minute. And I was actually able to participate in her summit, so she interviewed me, and then I said, you know what, let's interview you, because the whole topic of the summit about mom unlimited and, you know, the whole idea of it, I think resonates so well with all kinds of moms, wouldn't you say? So that's why you're doing it, I'm sure, Valerie.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
So that's why we're doing the show here today. And let me just tell you a little bit about Valerie, and then we can jump in and hear some of her wisdom on this. So Valerie is a certified professional coach. She's also a loving mother and wife. How many kids do you have?
I have 2, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, both
2
boys.
and 5 boys. Oh, we love boys around here. I miss the little boys. They're so cute. So Valerie, of course, is in the thick of it like the rest of us, and she gets it. And she's also the founder of The Unlimited Mom. So if you go to her website, theunlimitedmom.com, you can find some great resources, including her free gift, The Unlimited Mom Formula for Happiness, Balance, and Fulfillment. So be sure to download that, and that's a great little tool to have as well. And just a couple more things about Valerie. Not long ago, she was just like all of us, feeling like she was struggling with feeling overwhelmed or out of balance, like we all feel so often, and that guilt that comes in for wanting something more, something different. But she decided to do something different. She decided to take action, and she got her own coach. She started learning the skills of coaching and energy leadership. We're going to talk about that. And she tapped into her own purpose, increased her energy, and now she's actively living this life that she loves. And her work revolves around helping women like all of you who are trying to ditch the limits of, quote, this is as good as it gets, and step into our own unique, authentic, and amazing mom life. And that's what today's show is all about. So let's just jump right in, and let's talk first about the idea of the limits that we have on ourselves. What would you say are some of the common limits that you think moms might have for ourselves when it comes to becoming, who we want to be or living the life we want?
Well, it really comes down to the shoulds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's any of the shoulds, any of the places where you're saying, well, I should do this or I shouldn't do that. And it's like they're innumerable shoulds because you hear these, oh, somebody's doing this. It's like everybody has advice as a mom, or even people who aren't moms. Just they all have opinions, and you get the parenting books, and the parenting books all have, we'll do it this way, and this is the way it works. And we start thinking, well, what's wrong with me that it doesn't work for me? And, going into the bad mom thoughts and stuff. But all of those limits, they're all limits. They're all places where we stop. Yeah. All the places where we think, okay, I'm going to be an awesome mom. We go in thinking, I'm going to rock motherhood. Everybody says it's hard, but yeah, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be awesome. And then you get in, you're like, what? I mean, and that was me. And it was the limits of the routine, of the minutia of the day. It was like I had these blinders on. I'm going to get through it. I've got to go. And it's like this thinking, these blinders are my limits. Right. It's like, when I try and go outside of that, it's basically motherhood is constantly being outside of your comfort zone because it's a constant growing process. And anytime you're growing, you're outside of your comfort zone. And anytime you're outside of your comfort zone, you feel uncomfortable, and it's really easy to get into that kind of fight or flight space where you're almost in emergency, and you don't have room for more when you're in emergency. So to think further than that of like, oh, well, maybe I could do it this way, or what if I tried this other thing? It's harder to do that when you've got these blinders on of just trying to get through it and just trying to survive it.
Yeah.
Those are I would say, anything that has you in that state, any place where you're saying I should make all of the meals from scratch, or I should I should not keep the baby up past nap time. Like any of those places where you have a should.
Yeah.
That's a limit.
No, I love that. And it makes it so clear and relatable because we all have those shoulds and we've all been there and I'm totally with you. I always agree that when you hear that word should, you need to stop and ask, well, why should you? Should you because somebody else thinks you should? Should you because this is what you thought that it meant to be a mom? Or should you because you really have something inside that makes you want to do that? And if that's what it is, then you need to change the should to, I want to do this, or I need to do this, So you're so right. And you also hit on something really important, which is what this show's all about, growing through motherhood. And talking about, that I love this idea of reminding us that it is uncomfortable to grow. And that's what motherhood's all about. I loved what you said there, that motherhood's all about being uncomfortable. I mean, really, it is. It's constantly pushing you. It's constantly changing our limits and broadening our minds and having to grow us in different ways. And I mean, I always say that parenting and parenthood and motherhood is the best soil for the ultimate growth, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if we take it, if we plant ourselves and choose to grow through it. But again, it's uncomfortable and we don't like what's uncomfortable and we want to change what's uncomfortable. We don't want to be stuck in, a place where we feel, uncomfortable or, miserable or whatever. But if we can push through the discomfort, is what I'm hearing you say, that's where you get the best kind of growth, right?
Well, it's learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And being like, I love what you talk about is that growing space. There's a big movement right now to accept where we are, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that seems to be leading to, and it's true. I mean, we're not perfect in terms of this outside concept of perfect. We're perfectly unique. We're perfectly ourselves.
Yes.
And it's recognizing that it's not just about saying, I'm doing the best I can, because the more we stay in that and the toleration space of I'm just, well, it's what it is. When we stay in that space, it's so easy to slide back into beating ourselves up. It becomes this Band-Aid instead of addressing what the core of it is. And the core of it is that growing space. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to look like, there's no box to fit it in. There's only, okay, how do we grow? How do I want to move forward with this? What do I want to do with this information? So the more we stay in that toleration space, the more likely we're going to get sucked back into what I call catabolic energy, which is a destructive energy. It's a breaking down energy. It's that fight or flight. It's the cortisol and adrenaline hormones of just getting through it and just surviving it, instead of the space of what can I do with this? What's the opportunity here for me? Or for everybody, how do I find a win-win here? And usually that pretty much always that starts with me of where do I sit in? We talk about fitting ourselves into that puzzle piece, the puzzle. We are the puzzle.
Yes, that's true. Exactly.
I mean, the puzzle is us. This is our life, our reality, and that is all there is. So if we're just allowing ourselves to be a piece of it, and that's it, or not even part of it at all, we're we talk about balance, and I'm weighing this, and I'm weighing this, and trying to find this balance. The part that we forget is the fulcrum, which is us.
Yeah.
Which is why I actually like to throw out the whole balance idea in the first place.
Me too.
We just forget that it's about us. We're kind of like this lava lamp of, life. We are the lamp. We are the light. And everything is this lava moving through us. So it's, how do I want to experience this?
Yeah.
And the want to is the core part of it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we get into the shoulds, and my mom used to say, stop shoulding all over yourself.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
But the more shoulds we have, the less our engagement, the lower our energy, and the more we get into starting just, I've got to get through it. Instead of I want this. What do I want?
Right.
And opening our creativity, because that's what opens our ability to get creative with situations instead of judging them and saying that, oh, I feel awful and this is bad. This is uncomfortable and thus it's bad. As soon as we label it bad, it becomes an I don't want to or I have to instead of I want to, which is the highest level of engagement.
Right.
So
right.
That's what I work on.
This is so important. And I want us to get to that energy piece. You touched on that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there are a couple of things that you said that I want to emphasize. So first of all, I mean, the whole point of being unique, being true to ourselves and doing it our way. We talk about that a lot on the show because I think that is such a struggle for all of us. I mean, you mentioned, you have that thought or that feeling of, I'm the only one that feels like this or can't handle this or can't do this. And we've all felt like that. It immediately brought me back to my days of, having postpartum depression the first time. and feeling like, am I the only one that doesn't just totally all of a sudden love being a mom? And, I'm depressed and I'm having a hard time and I love the baby, but it's so hard and I feel like I'm trapped. And I had all these thoughts and feelings, and all I wanted was just one person even just to say, I totally feel the same. And at that time I didn't know how to there weren't support groups. It wasn't kind of the same as maybe we could reach out now, but I wish I could just have a camera on everybody listening right now, because if I ask you all to raise your hand if you've ever thought that you're the only one that can't do it or isn't good enough or whatever. See, okay, Valerie and I raise our hands, and just imagine a sea of hands right now, because if we were doing this live, everybody would raise their hands because we all feel that way. And that proves that we're not the only one, and that this is a normal part of motherhood, but it is something that we really need to work on. And as you talked about, that whole growth piece is so important, and being able to focus on what we want. And I think that's another block, as you said, to think about, what do I want? Because I think a lot of us get into, well, what do my kids want? And what do my partner want? What everybody else wants? And, as women, we kind of do that anyway. But as moms, I think it's like 10 times worse. And not that we aren't going to do those things. We still are going to love and take care of our families, but we're going to be better at it when we're looking at what we want as well. And as I like to say, like, desire in the good sense. Like, what do you desire? What do you desire from life? And not, not in the like, oh, my desires that are going to overcome me and I'm going to be eating bonbons on the couch, but just like, I desire happiness, or I desire peace, or I desire, joy or fun or whatever it may be. And that those things are really important for us to have in our lives as well. So we have to make that space and that permission for that. But also, as you said, balance is such a huge, I always call it a myth as well. And I loved how you pointed out that we are the fulcrum of that balancer. I always talk about how balance is really, it's a myth, because it's really, balance is like the end result of what we feel when we're making the right choices. So really, it's about making choices, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about making different choices based on what we really want out of life.
I always say it's about making conscious, loving choices.
Yeah, I love that.
Because that's what it is. It's this sense of love. It's making a choice out of love instead of out of fear and judgment.
Yes.
And it's so hard when we're so bombarded with all of these judgments. And the thing is, the more conscious and loving you are, the more confident you are, and the less the outside judgments will affect you. Because the reason those outside judgments affect us is because they reflect that voice that we already have in our mind telling us that we're not doing a good enough job and that we're somehow lacking. And it's easy to feel that way when you're in a situation you've never been in before. And again, you're constantly in situations you've never been in before as a mom. Yes. I would say to all of those people out there listening, anything that you're feeling is completely normal.
Yes. So
totally
true.
Normal for you. For whatever you're thinking, that feeling is completely normal. And and then the question is, it's only information. Your feelings aren't facts about the outside world. They're information about you and choosing, okay, so this is how I'm feeling. What do I want to do with that?
Right.
Because that's where our power is. It's not in all of the other stuff out there. It's in us and what we choose.
Yes. And I loved that point earlier about how we are the puzzle, and we, it's about how we're making up our life, and the power is in us. We just have to reach down and kind of like, expose it or let it out or tap into it or whatever you want to call it. And I think we forget that. We are always looking for that thing outside or something else to try to help us, but really it's all there in you. And I love that you gave that permission to everybody, and I hope everybody heard that permission that we all need to just, to be able to accept that, everybody feels this way, and that, this is where I am, and this is who I am, and this is how I feel, and it's okay. And like you say, to be able to monitor how we're feeling and what comes up, that is such good information to then guide us to the next step, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about energy as this all fits together, because to me, that was such an interesting part of your work. I think it's one of the biggest topics that moms are always wanting. We always want to know, how do I get more energy? Because it's so tiring, as we know. It's so nonstop being a mom. And so tell us a little bit about some of the the ideas and principles or skills that we might be able to start working toward when it comes to energy. And I think we've started that by saying, when we start to realize what we want and tap into how we're really feeling and accept where we are and these kinds of things, and then move forward, then we start to feel more energized. But talk a little bit more about energy.
Yeah, absolutely. This was actually the key thing for me in my training that made me realize that I wanted to work with other moms. Because I had originally thought, I knew I loved working with people,
Yes.
and as a mentor and everything, but learning this as a coach, it was like I was done with corporate because I had to help other moms with this too. And that is that, we talk about energy. It's really about our attitude and our perception of the world. When we are in a state of feeling like it's about everything else around us and we're being put upon, we're being victimized, it's there's a lot of judgment there of good and bad, and we get into that state of avoidance. Overwhelm is characteristic of this first level of energy, which is the lowest level of energy. It's overwhelm, which goes hand in hand with avoidance and lethargy. We have this like hole in our tire. It's just like our energy is going right out. And it's normal to be in that state, especially when you need to ask for help. I mean, that for me, going back to the information, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, that's generally a really big sign for me of I need to do some self-care. I need to ask for some help. Because that's a state of I can't take responsibility, which I think of responsibility as the ability to respond.
Yes.
My ability to respond is depleted. So I need to ask for help. The next level up, where you have a little bit more energy, is your fight response. This is, so you've got flight and then you've got fight. So you're going to muscle through it. You're going to fight your way through it. You're going to make it happen. You're going to force it. I'm just going to make it. Then it's still a lot of judgment, and it's still going to break you down over time. No judgment on either of these, because the thing is, sometimes those are very, very necessary levels to be in. I mean, if you have an emergency situation that, like you have to save your child from harm, that's a really important level to be at.
Right, absolutely.
But over a long period of time, it's going to break you down.
Right. It's not saying that any of these are wrong or bad. We all have been in each of these different phases.
Yes.
But when you notice that you're there for an extended period, it wears you down and it keeps you. I did a show a couple weeks ago. For those of you who haven't listened, you can go look it up, on dealing with powerful feelings. And one thing I talked about was some of the research done by David Hawkins on energy and emotions. And from his perspective, that turning point, like you're talking about, from that, I like how you put it into the flight and fight kind of mode. That's something we can relate to. We talked a little bit about that on that show too. But he says courage is kind of that turning point level. That when you start to have courage, like you say, that's when you're going to start to fight. So it's like that turning point in your emotions is when you can start to have that courage. Like, I don't want to feel like this, or I don't want this to be like it, so I'm going to do something. But again, like you say, it's not, this isn't a judgment point. It's just, this is how it is. And this is kind of how we can then move ourselves up to the higher energies that we want, right?
And those are common stress levels.
Yes.
So when we're in stress, those are the levels that we tend to go to. Almost everybody does. We start to shift out of that catabolic space into an anabolic state, which is a building energy, which is, creative energy. When we move into a level 3, which is a level of, this, if you think of like the one as being I lose, this sense of I'm losing in life. 2 is I win, you lose. I'm going to win, you're going to lose. Like that's, because that's the only way for me to win. We start moving into that more creative space when we can go in the more inspirational space. When we can go, okay, I win. I hope you do too, but I'm going to win here. And you do your thing. So it's a toleration. It's a coordination. It's okay, you got your stuff, but I'm going to figure out how to make it work for me, Right. And so it's toleration. It's there's a forgiveness. I forgive you for being, crazy or, not understanding me. My husband, I have this happen. Like, okay, honey, I forgive you for not getting it. I'm going to go do this now because this is important for me.
Right.
Whatever it is. So it's starting to move out of that space where I can see more options, see more possibilities. I'm releasing some of the negativity, some of the tension, some of the control of things outside of myself, moving a little bit out of judgment, just a little bit. And as we move up, we get into this level 4 energy where it's you win, and by you winning, I win. So it's a caretaking. It's I'm going to help you, which will help me. Yeah. The trick with this is a lot of us, especially moms, are in that zone, and we overdo it, and we get depleted, and then we go back to I lose. We jump back to overwhelm and out of that. So
that's that all or nothing. I know I'm totally like that. I'm either like all or nothing. So I have to really work on kind of moderation, like being, like you say, not overdoing it at that level 4, which is a great place to be. But I think what we do though, and here's that judgment piece again, is we say, that's the best one. So that's the one I need to be in all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And then we burn out. Yeah.
Well, and it's forgetting to take care of ourselves and getting caught up in a drama or a story, and getting caught up in somebody else. There's a balance there, and all of these levels are valuable at different times. Yes. Level 5 is one that really works well a lot, but it's very much a headspace, and that is we all win or we don't play. This is the level of opportunity. What's the opportunity here? How can we all win in this situation? And having a balance there of like, one of the ways that I do this is recognizing when I need to, when I'm going to take time for myself, of recognizing how, even if the people around me aren't seeing this, and that's the key. It's easy to get caught up in like thinking that, that we all win means that we all have to recognize that we're all winning.
Right.
That is not the case. It's an attitude. All of these are an attitude of how you approach life. Yeah. So it's going, okay, well, how do I make, how this is an opportunity for me to grow. This is, the other day I left the diapers and the wipes at home. I walked right out the door with them. We went to a birthday party, and my 2-year-old had a pretty yucky poop. Yes. And my husband comes up and he goes, you have the diapers and wipes, right? So we can change his diaper. I was like, no, I really don't. And luckily, I had been talking a little bit about this energy level and thinking it was really present for me, and I was in a really good, engaged space, and I was just like, okay, so this is an opportunity for me to take a little breather from this and go run to the store and get some wipes. We need wipes anyway. So here's an opportunity for me to get those without dragging the kids, and they can play. My husband, it was actually mostly dads there, so it's an opportunity for him to connect more with the dads. And I saw there's this amazing house that I drove past going. I mean, so I was like seeing all of these opportunities here. It's a win-win. It's all wins. Yeah. And so, but it's an attitude, because another day, if I was having an off day and I was in this victim mode of, thinking about, life is just happening to me, I would have just, why did I do this? Why didn't he remind me? Like, this is always happening to me. This sucks, and starting, you can hear the difference of the judgment. Oh yeah, you're beating yourself up. Totally. And we can all relate to that. Yeah. Or my husband.
Right, or somebody else. Right, exactly. Why didn't you tell me?
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, but in those spaces, you have more energy. Right. Like, I didn't feel depleted by that situation at all. Right. Whereas it would have been one more thing to deal with.
Well, there's this great concept that I learned years and years ago from some book I read, which is that when we're in a bad mood, it's because we don't have the energy we need to face whatever demands we're facing. And it's just what you're talking about. It's like, we're going to make a bad choice when we don't have the energy we need to face whatever we're facing. But like I say, when we're in that good energy space, we cope better. We deal with our relationships better. We handle life better.
Yeah. And I would say it's high energy space.
Yes.
Over good energy space. It's hard because our language, we use good and bad so often, and it's something that I'm really working on cutting out of my vocabulary because it's so judgmental and not descriptive at all.
Well, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that because you're right. Here I am saying exactly like you just said. But high energy, but let's differentiate too. High energy meaning like you're talking about this level 4, this level 5, and not high energy like manic, like perfectionist. Like I think a lot of us get that wrong too. Yes. We think that high energy means I'm just go, 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 go.
Super mom.
Right. Instead of realizing it's not really about that physical energy as much as it is. I mean, it can come out as physical energy, but it's like you say, it's like a headspace. It's like a being present, being, here right now, this kind of thing, right?
The higher your energy, the more present you are in the moment, the less judgment you have, and the more present you are. I mean, as we go up into like levels 6 and 7, which are the highest levels of energy, we get into like complete joy, non-judgment, totally present, both observing and participating in our world at the same time. I mean, these are not levels people stay in for very long, but they're like, if you think about some time where you've been engaged in something where you lost track of time, and you were so like in it, or, like giving birth, for those of you who had a birth and became a mother that way.
Yeah.
That can be it. There's also, just looking at your baby and having that moment of just staring at them and going, oh.
Yeah.
Those are the highest levels of energy. And we don't stay there. It's just not, humans, it's not normal.
But yet we see a lot of quote unquote spirituality experts and mentors, gurus, whatever you want to call it, who, I've listened to a lot of these different kinds of spiritual podcasts and books. I'm really interested in all of this and how to connect and find that connection that makes you feel alive and energized and have that. But I always think, well, yeah, when they're saying like they do constantly stay in that space, I think, well, yeah, but you don't have kids. You're not like, you're not a parent. Always, they're never parents. They're never like people who have like a couple kids at home and they're like, I'm always in this glorious space, So, yeah. Like you say, it's all about what we need for the time of life we're in, for the space of life we're in. And as mothers, that's going to change as we grow through the different seasons of motherhood. You're going to have your times that are harder, where you are physically more exhausted because you're not sleeping, or then maybe like in teenager years, you might be sleeping more, but you're emotionally exhausted from all the drama or whatever's going on. So, we have to take that into consideration and realize that's kind of part of our lot, but also that we can also have those moments, like you say. Yeah. And that's what I always like to say. Joy is in the moments. It doesn't have to be this continual space in order to feel like you have those joyful moments that you can kind of connect together to say, my life is good. I have this.
And you don't actually want to stay in that space.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. It's because those spaces, those spaces are too aloof. It sounds bad, but those are separate spaces. They're fully engaged, but it's hard to connect with people in that space.
Yeah,
you're more connected to this spirit space than you are with human space, And
that's
so those, being in those spaces and tapping into those through meditation, through some sort of practice, some sort of hobby that really engages you, giving yourself that pause to really, be appreciative and all of that stuff, that will energize you.
Yeah.
But you don't want to stay there because you have kids. You want to connect with those kids, and those kids don't. There's a certain aspect that is always in those levels of like deeply connected, highly present, but they have their drama and the push, the challenges, especially those like younger years and teen years when they're like testing the boundaries and trying to see how far they can push you. What buttons can they push? What will happen if I do this? And though it's natural for you to kind of engage with that, but it's being able to really get curious.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing that I would say to shift and be more conscious is just to get curious. Okay, I'm feeling like this. And remember that feelings aren't facts. They're about you. So I'm feeling like this. What's the thought I'm telling myself in this situation?
Yeah.
Because those are what create the action that you take. So if you don't like the action that you're taking, you want to do something different. It's getting curious about the thought that you're having, which is creating the emotion that you're having, which is doing, moving into the action that you're taking. Yeah. And that's where coaching comes in, is we help you get curious about that and dig a little bit deeper than the thinking, you're thinking on your own went.
Right, right.
That's why coaches have coaches, because you can't. My husband will go to me. He says, "You're so good at this with me. You're so great at helping me get out of this stress thinking. Why can't you do that for you?" Does a brain surgeon do brain surgery on herself?
Right. No, I'm the same. I mean, I'm a psychologist. I've been to my own counseling, my own therapy. I need my own help to see things and to change things. And you're right. We all need that kind of help and outside, look at things. And I love the reframe of curiosity, because to me that word by definition sort of has energy in it. When you're when you're curious about something, you have energy to go and investigate and to look. And I also love it because it's non-judgmental, which I think, so many of us need to have that curious space. And I was even thinking, not even just, of course, about ourselves, to be introspective and want to learn and see ourselves. I talk a lot about that when we talk about self-esteem and how to be self-aware and things like that. But also to be curious about our kids. That's a great tool. That's a great word to think about when your teenager comes home with a big issue or somebody's in trouble at school or whatever. Let's be curious about what happened instead of being like upset or, depressed about it or whatever. So I really appreciate that perspective. So let's use our last minutes here to talk about maybe what are a couple of things we can do, because now we understand the benefit of changing our energy levels. And we've talked about some things, I think that can help us to do that. But maybe some specific ideas for moms who are listening right now going, okay, great. I'm definitely at a level 2 right now, or a level 1 or whatever. I want to be at a 4, at a 5, at a 6, whatever. I want to experience that. I haven't been experiencing that. What are a couple of things that we can do today, start doing today to begin that process of creating that energy or getting curious or whatever we're talking about, changing our life in the positive way that we want to?
Mm-hmm. Well, a big piece of it is just awareness, and not to have the expectation that you're just suddenly going to be able to jump from a level 1 or level 2 to a level 6. It doesn't work like that. So just being aware is the first part, and kind of asking yourself the question, okay, so where am I right now? If I were to put myself in a level, what level am I at right now? And then what would it look like if I engaged with this in, say, a level 3 of forgiveness and, how can I find a win here that, where I can compromise or, coordinate. How can I coordinate this? Where can I take my power back? Where do I have responsibility? And then asking the question, what am I thinking? What is the story that I'm telling myself about this? One of my favorites is, what are 3 other ways that I could look at this situation? So it's because it's so easy to be totally bought into the way I'm looking at this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's based on our filters and our perception and how we're feeling that day and all of those things. So if we can step back and go, what are 3 other ways? Like if I asked my husband, who has often different perceptions than I do, what he thought about it, what might he say about this?
Yeah.
So that's one way for me to take a step out of the auto response.
Right. That's so good. I love that. Ask somebody else for their perspective, or just try to come up with 3 different ideas. That's simple. And anybody can do that. Any of us can do this. And the things you're talking about, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about, just start by wanting something, start by, you can, it's as simple as that. Like you say, becoming self-aware, try to be aware of what's going on in your life or what you're feeling or what energy level you're at. And again, back to that point at the beginning of, it's so personal and unique to each of us what that's going to be like. For some of us, we might look and say, what do I really want? I really want more time with my children, and I really want to not work anymore, or I really want to, whatever it might be, work outside of the home. And for others, it might be, you know what, I've always wanted to go and start this business or go and do this project or have this hobby and I haven't done it. And that's going to help me, you know, with my energy increase as well by finding those things. So again, it has to be personal. We can't compare or judge, you know, ourselves against any other person or look at any other person in the way that they've done it, because it's just not, that's not how it works. So these are very simple things that we're talking about, just starting
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
Well, and even just releasing judgment.
Yeah.
And the first step to releasing judgment, because that sounds like so easy, but it's like
Right.
not.
Right. Just don't judge yourself, okay?
Yeah, just stop judging
Get
people.
over it.
Just
Yeah.
and yourself. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Is to keep a journal and write down every time you have a thought that is judging something as good or bad or right or wrong. And it doesn't matter if you believe it's right or wrong. Just write it down so that you can start seeing how often you're doing that and becoming more aware of when you're doing that and maybe what buttons get pushed for you. Because we all have buttons. We all have stuff that triggers our emotional reaction for whatever reason. So it's just being aware of it can make a huge difference in starting to shift it.
I love it. And I'm a fan of writing it down too. I think it's great. Then you can go back to it later and see your progress or see where you're still stuck. It's great to write it down. So these are fabulous ideas. And I know we could talk forever about this topic. There's so much more we could say. But is there any one last thing you want to share with our listeners, with the moms listening, about just breaking the limits and, you know, trying to seek that energy that they want in their lives? Any other last message that you'd want to share?
Honestly, the main thing is check out Motherhood Unlimited. All of the experts that I have gathered together have fabulous things to share along these lines, wonderful tools that are easy to implement today. And just, you know, inspiration. And inspiration always increases my energy when I'm feeling inspired. So check that out. It's motherhoodunlimited.com. There's also pretty much most of the experts have a free gift. So if you hear somebody that has a lot of value, you can take it even further and access their free gift. So
awesome. So again, motherhoodunlimited.com, correct?
Yes.
Check it out. And if you happen to be listening to this show after this has all happened, if it's, you know, a year from now or whatever, still go check out the website because there's tons of great resources there. You can obviously connect up with Valerie. You can get her free gift again, which is going to be fabulous. That mom formula for balance and happiness and fulfillment. Sounds pretty good to me. And of course, you know, get more inspiration. I'm with you. I mean, inspired means in the spirit, right? It's like having that energy, that kind of like inspiration. So, and you've been very inspiring today, Valerie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been real fun. And for all of you out there, I hope you'll connect with us on my website as well, drchristinahibbert.com, for links to all kinds of other resources that can help you to break your limits and hopefully increase your energy and continue to come back here to motherhood and grow through it with us. Because as we know, it's a whole lot better to do it together as we do each week on Motherhood Radio. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.